I think the real value, as you said, is just understanding yourself. Emotional intelligence begins with knowing yourself, and once you know yourself, you're able to be better at dealing with others.
Welcome back to the Faculty Factory podcast. I'm Kim Skorupski, and today we have Dr. Dave Yousem, my favorite buddy and colleague in the Office of Faculty Development here at Johns Hopkins. Dave Yousem is the Associate Dean for Professional Development and the Vice Chairman of Program Development in Neuroradiology, and he wrote the textbook on neuroradiology for all of you neuroradiologists listening out there. Good afternoon, Dave. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Kim. Looking forward to our conversation.
And today we're going to talk about something that's really rare, and I've heard a little bit about it. I don't know much about it, but it's this thing called conflict. Tell us a little about this conflict idea. I have no idea what it means or how to deal with it.
Yeah, well, most of us in real life have conflicts every day, and it may be as simple as, what are we having for dinner today? Or it may be something as dramatic as, hey, you're copying my work and publishing it instead of me. So there's a lot of different realms of conflict, and I've been a student of the Thomas Kilmann conflict mode instrument, and I'd like to talk to you about it.
Well, please do.
Well, the Thomas Kilmann conflict mode instrument is something I believe it was developed in 1977 by Thomas and Kilmann, and it consists of basically a 30-question 2-option answer survey that allows your style in conflict to be sort of graded, if you will, on 2 domains. One is your level of cooperativeness, and the other is your level of assertiveness. So if you can imagine sort of a chart with assertiveness on one side going from low to high, and cooperativeness on the x-axis, if you will, going from low to high. Based on this 30-question simple survey, Kim, you can separate people into 5 different conflict styles. The style that is the highest in assertiveness, but the least in cooperativeness, is the competitor, the competitor style, being competitive. The style which is the least assertive as well as the least cooperative is the avoidant style. The style which has the highest level of cooperation as well as high assertiveness is the collaboration style. And the style which is low in assertiveness but high in cooperation is the accommodating style. And then there's this 5th style, which is sort of centered in the middle, which has intermediate assertiveness and cooperativeness, and that's called compromising style. So based on this 30-question test, you get scored for how competitive you are, how collaborative you are, how accommodative you are, how avoidant you are, and and how much you compromise. And it's really quite fascinating because it really, I think, gives a really nice sort of self-assessment on what type of reaction you have to conflict.
I remember studying it when you and I did that mediation training, and I love the way I think about it are the animals that are associated with each of those styles. So the avoider is the turtle. The competition and competitor is the shark. The accommodator is the teddy bear. And I think the owl was the collaborator. And I can't remember the animal for the compromise. As you talk, I might remember it, or I'll try to dig around on my emails here to find it.
That's actually quite good. That's quite good because it does give you a little bit of a vivid graphic for the different styles.
Yeah.
Yes. So, people quite often ask, well, what style should I be? What do I aspire to? And this is sort of, almost like the Myers-Briggs where we say, you shouldn't try to be an introvert or extrovert or a thinker or a feeler. It is what you are, but you should be able to move in different settings to different Myers-Briggs style and or to different Thomas-Kilmann conflict mode styles. So, for example, in those issues that are really highly important to you, let's use the term mission-centric or value-centric, you're more likely to fight hard for them and therefore be more assertive. Now, you may be cooperating and assertive, in which case you're in the collaborative group, or you may be just very strong and not listening to other people and not cooperating, in which case you're in the competitive group. But those are the things that are really important to you. Sometimes there are conflicts. I gave the example of, I don't want to have to go out to Chinese food again, tonight with my wife because, we went there 3 nights ago, and she says, no, I really have a yen for Chinese, a yen for Japanese food, I guess, a yen for Chinese food. So then I might go into my accommodative mode. I mean, it's not really that important to me. I'm really into cooperation with my wife. It's an important relationship. So you might choose to be more on the accommodative side. Quite often in business dealings, in the end, a lot of the decision-making gets done by simply compromising. So, you make a bid on at the shopping bazaar, for buying it for $1, the shopkeeper says, no, this is my best work, and I want $3 for it, and you come to a compromise, let's just split the difference and we'll go to $2, and people may be happy with that. So depending upon the different circumstances, how important the issue is for you, you may go from one style to the other. I think the value of the Thomas Kilmann is that you can see what the other person is, their favored style is, and you can also assess, your favorite style and how to be more effective in that style.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was looking this up online while you were talking. The compromiser is typified by the fox. So the collaborator is the wise old owl, the competitor is like a shark, the accommodator is a teddy bear, the avoider is a turtle, and the compromiser is the fox. And, what I like about this model is how not only recognizing yourself and the other person, but sometimes recognizing that you can be a different animal, if you will, depending on the situation. And so once you're aware of those and can put some language around that, we might figure out, well, in this negotiation here, in this instrument, this is a battle, not a war. I'm happy doing the accommodator. I'm going to be the teddy bear here. But boy, you get me over in this territory, I'm the shark. I'm competing. So I think what's interesting about this instrument is that, again, just like the Myers-Briggs, understanding where our own preferences are. A lot of us avoid certain kinds of conflict, but as leaders, we really have to step up. And once you recognize your natural tendencies and then becoming better able to identify others' conflict management style, then learning to flex into different styles and helping others recognize and flex in other styles. But yeah, it's just good stuff. I love it. Keep going.
Yeah, for example, and I'm a little bit wary about bringing politics into this, but whether you like Donald Trump or not, he has elected, for example, on the issue about intellectual property with the Chinese government and the negotiation there, to be very strong about. This is something that clearly is very, is one of our advantages in the world economy. And so Trump will be really harsh on China about not compromising and being in that competitive mode about making sure that our intellectual property is respected in China. At the same time, were he to be talking with England about such an issue, you may want to change that, that conflict style.
Yeah.
So I that's important. The other thing that I've done with counseling of junior faculty is that if you are someone who overwhelmingly is an avoider of conflict, you have to recognize that might be to your disadvantage if you're placed into a leadership position. So, for example, if there are issues in the Office of Faculty Development that need to be addressed with the full dean, do you want someone who's an avoider of conflict to be the person who's advocating for you, or would you rather have somebody who's more comfortable in that more competitive or accommodative role?
Right.
So again, it behooves the leader to be able to recognize, all right, my default is to avoid conflict and not address it, but these are, I'm in my job, and my job is to advocate for my people, and therefore I must flex into competitive, accommodative, compromising, etc. Yeah. So that type of counseling of people in leadership positions is sometimes helpful.
Now, you probably know more about this. I'm not a student of the Thomas Kilmann conflict mode like you are, but you just said something that made me think about the question that you and I are asked a lot when we do our leadership programs about the Myers-Briggs. People will inevitably ask us, well, are there gender differences? Is it that women are more likely to be this or men more likely to be that? Is there, I don't know the literature around this. Are women more likely to be avoiders and men are more likely to be, competitive? Is there anything around that?
Yes, actually, the Myers, the Thomas and Kilmann group initially did the analysis in 1977, and they redid the analysis in 2007 with about 30,000 respondents, and they separated it by gender as well as other different categories. So it turns out that it is true that, as you surmised, that men tend to have the higher competitor ratings by about, I think it was about 12% more likely than women. However, women and men fell into the avoidance of conflict group to exactly the same. The only area where women were statistically significantly more likely to be in a group than men was interestingly in the compromising group. Mm-hmm. So they had a 7% higher rate of being compromisers than men. Mm. So as far as accommodating or avoiding or collaborative, men and women were exactly the same.
And I think there is literature around, and Rachel Levine and others would know this, that women, I think that they show that we don't necessarily, there's literature around, we will be more shark-like for others. Advocating for others, we can definitely put on the baby shark or mama, daddy shark. Oh no, I'm going down that. I can't do it. I'm going to start singing the shark song. But women can be the competitive sharks when it's for someone else. And the challenge is sometimes for some women that when it comes to advocating for their own selves or having a potential conflict and trying to negotiate for something for themselves, they may not be as shark-like. So that's another interesting tidbit that I know that's in the literature, the gender literature somewhere.
Yeah, the other interesting tidbit is the way things shuffle out in different professions.
Yeah.
So I've done this across a number of different departments, Kim, and I will go into different radiology divisions. So my division of neuroradiology or the division of musculoskeletal radiology or the breast imaging division, and far and away you will find that radiologists are avoiders. And I tend to think that part of it is that we don't confront referring physicians about their ordering habits very often. So right. Even when we think that there may not be a true indication for a study, or when we're scratching our heads and saying, why did they order this, we don't usually get on the phone and confront our referrers. We're more in a service-oriented profession of medicine. And so, it's like 70 to 80% avoiders in the Department of Radiology.
Wow.
I've gone to orthopedic surgery. Much different. Right. Much different. You have about 50% competitive, mode. More so, avoiders are like 10%. it's a real difference. I also did it with psychiatry. A lot more on the cooperativeness and the accommodating and collaborating than the ones that are not so cooperating. Yeah. So it's been fascinating to me to do the same survey and come out with such grossly different numbers and percentages across different departments. But in some ways, some of the stereotypes I think do hold true about different people going into, for example, surgery versus emergency medicine versus radiology, psychiatry, etc.
And surely affected by the culture of a division or a section, a department, an institution, a nation. When you have that kind of a leadership mentality of creating a culture of cooperation, or if you're in business, some industry where it's got to be, or finance, it's very competitive, or sports agents or talent agents, or Hollywood, you can imagine why it's the culture necessitates a more competitive, perhaps, and a less collaborative stance.
Yeah, but I would say that, as you and I often say in the Myers-Briggs, the most successful people are the people who are able to draw all of the different styles and use them appropriately in the different settings.
Yeah. I have to definitely, I'm trying to schedule a podcast snippet with doctors Rachel Salas and Charlene Gamaldo, because they got trained in the Gallup Strengths Inventory. And it's, same kind of concept, that recognizing your strengths, if you are strategic or you're communicative and people building, that recognizing your weaknesses and other strengths just does nothing but help the team in terms of diversity. So you want people who are diverse in every facet, not only age and sex and race and ethnicity, but personality styles and conflict resolution styles and strengths and values, because that just rounds out the whole team. And then a clinician, a researcher can, look at who's in the next examination room. Oh, it's the patient X family. I definitely need a high feeler in here, or someone who's going to be really good at relationship building. So I need to call on Dave Yousem. Dave, I need you to get in there. And I certainly don't want a Kim Skorupski in there. So that kind of ability to have that emotional intelligence, we talk about that knowing yourself, managing yourself, knowing others, and having an awareness of others and building those relationships. I mean, I imagine you've got some good examples of how that EQ, emotional intelligence, figures into this whole conflict resolution and conflict management scheme.
Yeah, in fact, if I was critical of the Thomas Gilman conflict mode inventory, I don't think that they have as good suggestions for how to change, or if you're stuck in one mode, how to flex out of it or develop skills. They do tell you whether you're at the 25th or less percentile, or 75th or higher percentile, to give you some suggestions. But I think the real value, as you said, is just understanding yourself. I mean, emotional intelligence begins with knowing yourself, and once you know yourself, you're able to be better at dealing with others. Yeah. And so I think that's the main value of the instrument, frankly.
Yeah, I love it. And then that awareness allows us to be thoughtful in anticipating triggers and events and possible conversations or confrontations at a faculty meeting coming up, or anticipating a difficult conversation, and just kind of trying to coach that out and practice for the big game, knowing, well, if this happens, then that. How can I pivot here? How can I pivot there? I know if I get, hot, I'm going to want to defer to my under stress and pressure. I'm going to defer to the negative overplayed aspects of my Myers-Briggs, in the grip, if you will. So that thoughtfulness is what I like about it, is reminding myself, okay, Kim, you're going to want to go there, don't go there, push there, and call on my tribe, my people, hey, Dave, I'm going to need you to amplify me here. If you see me doing that, will you, kind of give me a sign and, nudge me that way. So.
Sure. And you and I, with the training in the Myers-Briggs, we sometimes will look at people and imagine what they might be in their 4 letters, but it helps us, in dealing with Barbara Fivush, who is our, outstanding associate dean for women and the head of the Office of Women in Science and Medicine. We know she's an F. So you and I will look at that and we say, all right, well, we have to, meet her halfway sometimes. Right. And I think that's the same thing with the Thomas Kilman. When going into your chairman that he or she is a competitive person and is going to be all over you, you can prepare your strategy much better than if you haven't, the wording or the type of typing, language, the vocabulary of it to strategize.
Great stuff. All right. Yeah, okay, Dave. This has been great, friends. You've been learning from Dr. Dave Yousem, our Associate Dean for Professional Development. Till the next time, we'll see you back on the Faculty Factory podcast. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks for tuning in to Faculty Factory Podcast. The mission of the Faculty Factory is to build and support a community of leaders in faculty development who share tools, resources, wisdom, and encouragement in service to our faculty members, schools, and institutions. We encourage you to go to facultyfactory.org to find out more, get in touch with me, ask me any questions. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Faculty Factory Podcast. We'll see you next time. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine Office of Faculty. For more information, visit facultyfactory.org.